India and Palestine share close relationship. There have been engagements as well. And currently we know the ongoing situation in Gaza is grabbing the international headlines. With me is the Palestinian Prime Minister speaking to WION. Sir, welcome to WION. It's great to have a conversation with you. And my first question to you is the question about the ongoing situation in Gaza. If you can detail what is the current situation in the Gaza Strip.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate. India is very dear to Palestine, and our historical relationship went back into the days of Yasser Arafat and Dera Gandhi and all what has followed. Also with the Prime Minister Modi and our President, myself, we are fully engaged, and India has been all the time a close friend for Palestine. One second important issue, I'm happy to address your audience, Mr. Sibal. The situation in Gaza is extremely catastrophic. This is a situation in which Gaza is a little tiny area, 364 kilometers, 2.3 million people, the most densely part in the world. Gaza Strip has been under attack since October 7, and also as a reaction to the Hamas attack on Israel. The situation is as follows. Until yesterday, we had 25,000 Palestinians who have been killed. 70% of them are women and children. 62,000 Palestinians are injured, and 1.7 million Palestinians have been forced out of their homes. 281,000 housing units have been destroyed between partial destruction and full destruction. Also, the Israeli Minister of Energy has switched off the water supply, electricity supply. Gaza is under siege. Food that is entering through the UN system is only 6 to 8% of what is needed. And most important is that the whole region lacks medicine. 27 hospitals out of 35 hospitals are out of service. Some of them have been fully and totally destroyed. Others did not have any fuel to operate. And the situation is extremely catastrophic. October 7, the temperature in Gaza, Gaza is a Mediterranean area. The temperature October 7 was 32 degrees centigrade, and now today is raining, is very cold, and people, when they left their homes, they were in T-shirts, and now they are really shuddering in the cold of the Mediterranean and also under the rain. Tents does not really protect them, and shelter is not available for most of the people who have been forced out of their homes from North Gaza to Middle Gaza, and then now all centered around Rafah area on the borders with Egypt. Only one entry point of international aid, which is Rafah crossing, that is the border between Palestine, Gaza, and Egypt. And Israel is in full control of this area now. And there are 5 entry points to Gaza that Israel is blocking, and international aid has been extremely slow, and people are dying because of hunger, and people are dying because of lack of medicine, lack of water, lack of food, lack of shelter. So those who might have not been killed by Israeli bombardment are facing death through other means. This is the situation. Just if you kindly allow, it will be very important for your audience also to know that here in the West Bank, the Israeli army has created 700 checkpoints. Also in this region, 641 Palestinians have been killed. Some of them are at the hands of the Jewish settlers. Since 1967, Israel has planted 285 Jewish settlements with 755,000 Jewish settlers who have been living illegally on an illegally expropriated Palestinian territory and Palestinian land that is privately owned by people. And the situation in the West Bank, where the army is encouraging into the refugee camps here in Jenin area, in the Tulkarem area, and quite a number of districts of the West Bank. Also attacks on Al-Aqsa Mosque, as well as the humiliation of a Christian pilgrimage who are here in Jerusalem and who have been visiting Jerusalem. So, my dear friend Sibal, the situation in all Palestinian territory is extremely catastrophic. It is not we who are occupying Israel. It is Israel that is occupying our land. And all what Palestinians have been fighting for is a day for freedom, a day of freedom, a day of independence, and a day in which Palestinians live side by side with the Israelis in a two-state situation. One state for the Palestinians on the borders of 1967 with Jerusalem as its capital. This is the area that Israel occupied in 1967.
So you've detailed the entire situation as to what is the current situation in Gaza. But are you hopeful that the situation will pacify? Are you positive about it, or do you think that 2024 will see a prolonged situation which we have seen starting last year?
That's a very good question. Look, the Prime Minister of Israel, Mr. Netanyahu, what he cares for is his personal survival. And his tactic is that he wants to prolong the war as long as he can in order for him to stay in power. So my prediction is that as the Israelis have been saying also, that this war will continue until the middle of the year, and then some security arrangement later. So if anyone wants to predict where things are heading, obviously 2024 is going to be not the year for peace, even though everybody is pushing in the direction of two states. But obviously the Israelis, they are not partners to this peace process. Israel now has not achieved anything of the goals that they have declared, and only one thing they have achieved, which is a total destruction of the region. And as I mentioned, 25,000 Palestinians killed, 62 injured, and 281,000 Palestinian housing units. So they have not achieved the goals they have declared they want to achieve. Therefore, my prediction is that the war will continue, or the aggression on our people will continue, and maybe Israel will widen the sphere of the war in order for Netanyahu to continue surviving as a prime minister.
So we all know about the ongoing problem, the issues which started last year. It is something that is decades old as well. But what is the solution in your view? Are we looking at some kind of a ceasefire? Because this situation, the ongoing situation, is a difficult situation. It cannot continue like this. There is a near consensus globally, at least, on this issue. So what kind of solution we are looking at? And do you think that a ceasefire is something that can be talked about? Are you looking at that?
My dear friend, I don't have to remind the Indian audience that the Indian people have pushed the British colonization and British occupation of India. So all what Palestinians are looking for and fighting for is one thing: independence. All what we want is to live in our own state like any other nation in the world. And the international community, including India, has been calling for two-state solution. This means a state for the Palestinians. There is only one state that does exist, which is the state of Israel. It's already there. And so what is needed now is the recognition of the state of Palestine and the end of Israeli occupation to the state of Palestine. Maybe a lot of people don't know that Palestine is under direct military occupation. Palestinians are not occupying Israel. It's the Israelis who are occupying Palestinian territory. And therefore, all the solution that we want is one thing: end of occupation. Right of self-determination to the Palestinian people. Palestinians have the right to live in a sovereign, independent, contiguous state of Palestine. And that's only 22% of what used to be called Palestine before the creation of the state of Israel in 1948. So Palestinians, they have made a huge compromise by accepting only a state on 22% of what used to be Palestine in 1948. So this is what we are fighting for. President Biden is in full support with the idea of two states. European leaders, India, Pakistan, Asia, China, Japan, Arab countries, you have international consensus on all these things that are pushing on the thing that is pushing for two states. The problem is that countries have been for 30 years calling for two states. Now it's the moment that we implement the two states, that we put Israel under sanctions in order for Israel to accept a two-state solution, to accept ending its colonization of Palestinian territory and ending its humiliation to the Palestinian people and ending the genocide that Israel is committing. You know, my dear friend Sibal, now South Africa has taken Israel to the International Court of Justice, where Israel is standing accused of committing atrocities and genocide against Palestinian people. When you have 25,000 Palestinians have been killed in 100 days, that's a real massacre against our people. And as I said, 70% of them are children and women.
So what kind of area domination that Israel has in Gaza, according to you, if you can detail? You have already talked about the ongoing situation in Gaza, but specifically if you can talk about this.
That's it. The Israeli army is now occupying nearly most of Gaza, except for one region, the Rafah area. So the Israeli army is there. And as I told you, now Israel is trying to achieve quite a number of issues. One has been for the last 100 days pushing Palestinians towards Egyptian border. So Israel wants to force transfer Palestinians out of Gaza. This is very small Palestinian territory with 2.3 million people. Israel wants quite a number of them out of Gaza into the Egyptian territory. We and Egypt has been calling for international community to pressure Israel not to force transfer our people. One. Second important issue, now we are pushing at a time when Israel blocking all entry points, we are pushing Israel to allow international aid to enter. And the third is that Israel now is thinking of annexing certain parts of this little tiny geography to create what they call buffer zones. When Israel, or if Israel is creating these buffer zones, it means that the whole geography of Gaza is shrinking and the number of people will be forced out. So we are working hard with Egypt, with Jordan, with the international community not to allow Israel either to annex certain parts or to force transfer our people out of Gaza. So, but this is the Israeli plan. Of course, they always say that they want to eradicate Hamas. I don't think that's something that is possible anyhow.
So now coming to the India bit, where do you see India and India giving a solution to the ongoing conflict? If you can talk about that. India has good relationship with Palestine. India also has good relationship with Israel. So do you foresee India playing an important role in pacifying the ongoing conflict?
For sure. For sure. I know that Indian leadership, Prime Minister Modi and others, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs have been fully engaged. And I know there are contacts, of course, with us. I have made a phone call to the Indian leadership, asking them to interfere in certain things that Israel is doing against our people. And I think Indian engagement is very important because of what you said. India does enjoy a good relationship with us and with the Israelis, and I think India can do a lot. One. Second, now Europe is working with certain Arab countries, mainly Saudi Arabia, us, Jordan and Egypt and Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. And we are working together to come up with a plan based on an international conference. And I think India, China, Russia, Europeans, Arabs, United States, and other countries who should be in that international conference. Because, my dear friend, look, we spent 30 years of negotiation with the Israelis, and Israel continued along the negotiation line. Israel continued to build settlements and fully and totally erode every possibility of a Palestinian state. So now we cannot go back to negotiations that has been ongoing for 30 years. Now you need a different paradigm. We need a serious paradigm shift from talks with Israelis, because our relationship with Israel is asymmetrical relationship. Israel is too strong, fully supported by Washington, and Palestinians are weak. We are under occupation. I mean, we're strong with our determination, with our will, with our dignity. That's a different story. But in military means, there is no balance of power. So we need to remedy this asymmetrical relationship by the intervention of a third party. We wanted and we did call for an international conference that should take place soon, in order for this conference to call upon Israel to end its occupation to the Palestinian territory. And if Israel does not end its occupation to the Palestinian territory, Israel should be put under sanctions. And I think India and others players are very important in this endeavor, in this direction. So India is welcome to play a constructive role. And we know that India has been of good support to Palestine, whether through certain infrastructure projects or politically or through other means. But most important is that the people of India have been always in full support of Palestine, and Palestine is very dear to the hearts of Indian people. So reflecting the will of the people and the will of the leadership, India can do a lot.
Any special message to the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi? If you can talk about that, I mean, the Prime Minister of India has globally a kind of impressive conversation with his counterparts. He has a good friendship with the Israeli Prime Minister as well. So any specific message you would like to give to the Indian Prime Minister?
You know, we don't send messages to prime ministers through the media. We send messages through diplomatic channels usually, and we communicate on phones and so on and so forth. But my message is to all of India and to the Prime Minister that we need you. And this is the moment where people have been standing solid for peace and justice. And I know India has been fighting for peace and justice for their own people all through history. And I am sure for our people as well. It's the right moment where on one we call for the two states. Yes, you know, India does recognize Palestine as a state, but Indian influence in the international political arena is very important. And we want the voice of India to be solid, in line with our voice for peace and justice for Palestine, for peace and justice for all, and also that Israel should be held accountable for all what they have been doing. And I think it will be very important if the Indian leadership will advise the Israelis to tell them, listen, guys, where are you heading? Israel has tried so many means and ways, and it has proven to be very failure. Israel has tried to buy whiteness for money. It didn't work. Israel has been employing security measures. Security does not bring peace. It is peace that brings security to Israel, and not the vice versa. And I think the Indian approach to these things is very important, whether through the non-allied movement, whether through the bilateral relation, or whether through the unique relationship between, you know, India and United States. The Americans are now showing good words. All what is needed is, as I said, to move from statements to practical implementation of a two states. So therefore, and I think our relationship is very unique with Indian people, with the Indian leadership. I know you're coming to elections in May, and we are very aware of these realities. And obviously, states are driven by their national interests. We understand that. But also, we and India have been standing solid for peace and justice on equal footing, on footing for dignity of our people, and also to see and fight together for peace, not only for Palestine, but in every single region of the world where conflict has to be eliminated, and that we push for a sustainable development, and we push for the current issues where Palestine can contribute. Palestine, this is the Holy Land. Yeah, for Christians, for Muslims, for everybody. And this Holy Land should be land of peace, not land of fighting. And peace can only be achieved through ending Israeli occupation that has occurred on the Palestinian territory since 1967. And I am resting assured that the Indian leadership is very capable of making a difference when it comes to pushing for peace and justice.
So you initially mentioned that you reached out to the Indian side, you have held conversation. Any specific proposal that you have given to the Indian side? And additionally, we have seen India sending humanitarian aid to Gaza, to the people of Gaza. If you can talk about that.
Yes, of course. Look, I mean, there is now an international effort to relieve Gaza. The situation, as I said, it's catastrophic. I was notified by your representative here, the ambassador, the lady ambassador of India to Palestine, a very capable lady. She has briefed us daily on Indian position, on Indian assistance to Palestine and to Gaza. And also there are quite a number of infrastructure projects that are funded by India, including a $30 million hospital, which is something, a landmark in Palestine. It will be with an Indian flag in the heart of the Palestinian territory. So there are quite a number of issues where, you know, India, as I said, can make a difference. We are communicating with the leadership through the diplomatic channels on these issues. But aid has been welcomed and aid has been really received from India to Palestine and Gaza.
So my last question to you is coming back to the two-state solution, something that you have talked about, the international community has also talked about. Hamas leader has said that he does not agree with that. He has stated that Hamas has nothing to do with the two-state solution. These are comments by Khalid Mashal, the Hamas leader. What do you have to say about this?
Well, I think Mashal has been very clear. He said that Hamas is ready to go along with the different Palestinian political factions. You know, Palestine is a pluralistic society. We have 15 Palestinian political groups and political parties and political organizations, and Hamas is one of them. And therefore, of course, we want to have a unified political position. We should all call for one thing, which is a two-state solution. And I think our communication before this war with Hamas has accepted the idea of two-state solution. Of course, they are saying that we don't want to recognize Israel. That's a different story, because now Israel does not recognize Palestine. So the issue is recognition should be mutual. It's not one party recognizing the other. You remember maybe Arafat sent a letter to Ishaq Rabin, the former prime minister, who was assassinated by the Israelis themselves because he wanted to make peace with us. And there was a letter from Yasser Arafat recognizing Israel. And so, but Israel never recognized Palestine. So therefore, I think recognition should be mutual. It's not up to Hamas or to Fatah or to BFLB, all this. It's just Palestinian people, they move in collectivity. And there has to be, I should be frank with you and with your audience, that we are now engaging. And we were actually, before October 7, we were engaging with Hamas to really accommodate them within the political arena of the PLO, so that we all agree on a political platform and we all agree on the tools of struggle. Because for us, very important thing that we have learned from the Indian experience of the Salt March, of passive resistance, of popular resistance, these are things are important when you don't have a balance of power. So Palestinians never gave up, Palestinians will not give up, and Palestinians will continue to fight through popular resistance, through peaceful means, through United Nations organizations, through international courts, through diplomatic organizations. We will continue. We will not surrender until this Israeli occupation is going to end. And Hamas is part of the Palestinian political arena, but we want everybody to be in line politically, not one party taking us to war and another party taking us to peace. We have Palestinians. We are working on unity and unification so that we all together go in one direction, which is ending occupation and the materialization, manifestation of a state of Palestine on the border of 67 with Jerusalem as its capital that does recognize, that does enjoy international recognition. So Hamas, and I should be frank with you and say, look, if Israel tomorrow is ready to end its occupation, I mean, all Palestinians will accept that. The problem is that Peace process has been ongoing, and at the same time, in parallel, Israel was destroying every possibility of a two-state solution through colonies, colonization, settlers, measures, checkpoints, land expropriation, humiliation, control of borders, control of our fields and area that Israel call Area C, that 62% of the West Bank is under full Israeli control, including Jerusalem and including borders. Palestinians cannot even move freely. Palestinians cannot trade freely, and all our trade, export and import has to come through Israel. For how long this Palestinian suffering should continue? Palestinian pain and suffering has been ongoing for the last 75 years. Remember, my dear friend, and your audience, you all know that we had 400,000 Palestinian refugees in Syria and 380,000 Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, and maybe more than 1.5 million or 2 million Palestinian refugees in Jordan and in Egypt and in Gaza. 65% of our people in Gaza are of refugee origin. They have been there for the last 75 years. For how long? If 75 years is not enough, then what is enough? If 25,000 Palestinians to be killed in 100 days, that's not enough. Then what is enough? If 62,000 Palestinians have been injured, if that is not enough, what is enough? So Israel now is in the mood of revenge, and Israel is like a wounded bull. They are trying to kill anybody in front of them. And this machine of killing is only killing for the sake of killing and revenge. Israel, this does not bring peace to Israel. Israel now stands accused in front of the International Criminal Court, in front of International Court of Justice. They are standing accused of genocide. And I think Israel should review its policies, review its strategy, and come to ground where peace is possible, and that for the Palestinians and the Israelis live in a two-state solution, and that we make peace in the whole region of the Middle East.
So one additional question, if you can briefly talk about India's capacity building programs in Palestine.
Say that again. Indian capacity building program in Palestine?
Yes, if you can briefly talk about that.
Yes, India has been helping us here beside humanitarian aid to Gaza. There are quite a number of initiatives that has been taken by Indian government, Prime Minister Modi and his government. It has to do with support for Palestinian economy, and it has support for some education, and support for women empowerment, and support for medical and health sector. As I said, through the construction of a hospital, that's a $30 million project, as well as some bilateral visits between us and Indian officials and so on. So India is an important player in this. Usually, India is not a donor country, but for Palestine, India has actually contributed into this direction, and that is also part of building the state from bottom to top. We have been doing that for the last 30 years. I think the time has come in which, while we are continuing to build capacity from bottom to top in preparation for the manifestation of a Palestinian state on the ground, now it is the time that we do what I call reverse engineering. We have to build the ceiling first and then come to the ground, which means that we need the international community, mainly United States and Europe, to recognize Palestine as a state, and then we work together on the foundations that are already there. My dear friend, I should mention to you that Palestine is very rich with culture of institutions. Just one example, the municipality of Hebron or the municipality of Nablus or the institutions are 100 years older than the State of Israel. The State of Israel was only created in 1948. The institutions in Palestine go back to the Ottoman period. That's, hundreds of years ago. So even the municipality of Nablus, as I told you, and Hebron and Ramallah and Safad and Haifa and Jaffa, all these Palestinian towns have rich culture of theater, of literature, of journalism, of dance, of contribution to international civilization, and so on and so forth. So the issue for us is not about only capacity. The issue for us is that we need to see an end to this occupation. The capacity is there. And the Palestinians are very capable. We have the highest university graduates in the region. Palestinians are very talented, highly educated. You see them with successful stories like Indians in all over the world, in the Gulf countries. Indians and Palestinians have contributed a lot to the success stories in the different Arab countries and in the region and so on and so forth. So capacity is there, and any contribution to that is more than welcome.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION, and of course, we will be in touch with you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, my dear Sibal. My best regards to you, to the Indian people, and I am sure that Palestine sits warmly in the heart of every Indian man and woman. Thank you so much for having me in this show.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.